Hello, my name is Katie George, and today I will be introducing you to a research microstudy I have conducted, exploring the relationship between video games and writing composition. This microstudy is an assignment for English 5363, Introduction to Research Methods at Texas Tech University, with Dr. Michael Ferris and Dr. Rebecca Rickley. I first became interested in researching this topic after reading Julia Mason's Video Games as Technical Communication Ecology. In this article, Mason discusses how online gaming environments call upon gamers to become technical communicators and provide opportunities for technical communicators to apply their expertise within the gaming industry. After reading Mason's claims that playing video games can change the identity of gamers into both writers and technical communicators, I wondered if playing these games might also have the ability to affect an individual's composition processes at their very core. This led me to the central research question driving this microstudy. In what ways can playing video games affect an individual's writing skills and composition processes? I think I'm most intrigued by this research topic because it's relevant to me. I myself play video games and do my fair share of composition work. Mason's article discusses how instruction manuals, a primary form of technical communication, are a staple among gaming communities. Recently, popular game developers like EA and Ubisoft have turned the world of gamers upside down by deciding to stop including print manuals with their games as part of a so-called Green Initiative. The disappearance of these instruction manuals has created a gap in gaming ecology and therefore has brought about the need for self-made instruction manuals in the form of online gaming forums like Discord and Twitch. Because I myself play video games, this change has affected me personally, and I have seen firsthand how gamers worldwide have leapt into action to fulfill this need by posting their own instruction manuals, tutorials, and tips online, becoming themselves technical communicators in the process. I have also seen how this shift in gaming ecology and consequent gap in knowledge has changed the way gamers communicate. It has taught them to be more thorough, persuasive, adaptable, and concise while communicating ideas to one another, all the while keeping in mind who their audience is. At the end of the day, these are all skills composition programs strive to teach their students, especially our own first-year writing program here at Texas Tech University. In order to further explore my research question, I decided to conduct interviews with individuals at a large university in the Southwest who meet the following criteria: are graduate students in an area of study considered in the English department, play video games regularly, and are instructors of a composition course. The first step in conducting my research was to locate appropriate and willing participants by circulating both my information sheet and recruitment letter amongst my peers. After a few individuals agreed to be interviewed, I worked together with them to find a day and time frame that would work for both of us. All interviews took between 45 to 60 minutes to complete, and I asked a total of 13 interview questions. These questions were separated into 3 subsections according to their theme: writing and composition, video games, and combination. The questions I asked my participants about writing and composition are as follows. 1. Could you briefly tell me about your history and relationship with writing and composition? 2. How regularly do you write now, and what genres make up the majority of your current composition work? 3. Could you tell me a bit about your writing process? I felt that it was important to begin the interview with questions about participants' writing processes because I'm studying video games' relationship to composition rather than the other way around. So I wanted to place composition at the forefront of this study. I also felt that if I was studying how video games might affect writing processes, I should first get an idea about each individual's experience and process for writing and composing. The questions I asked participants about video games are as follows. 4. How regularly do you play video games? For example, how many times a week? 5. What specific video games or types of video games do you play most, and could you briefly describe them to me, please? 6. Do you think the tasks, skills, and/or thought processes necessary for these games can in any way be compared to those associated with your writing process? 7. What are your thoughts or experiences associated with the negative social stigma about individuals who play video games? 8. Conversely, do you think that video games could have cognitive benefits for those individuals who play them? If so, in what ways do you think playing video games has cognitively benefited you? And 9. In what ways do you think these cognitive benefits have affected your writing process? Although crucial to my research, I categorized the questions about video games second because, again, I wanted the gaming aspect to take a back seat to the focus on composition. I found it necessary for my study to also become familiar with my participants' experiences with gaming. I placed particular emphasis on questions 5 and 6 because I hypothesized that they would yield the most useful information in this section. I feel that if playing video games can affect an individual's writing process, that effect will be primarily contingent on the type of game the individual plays. My final category of interview questions combines both writing and composition and video games. These questions are as follows. 10. Do you think that playing video games could affect the peer editing stage of the writing process, and if so, in what ways? 11. In some studies, composition students have been asked to view video games as texts. Have you ever viewed video games as multimodal texts like this, and if so, has it affected your writing processes? 12. Regarding the task then reward structure of video games, what similarities or differences do you see between the writing process and video games? And 13. Regarding revision, what similarities or differences do you see between the process of writing and video games? I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the limitations of this study. First, this is a micro-study, and the purpose of this assignment was to give us experience and ideas for future research on a larger scale. So it's important to remember that the results of this study will not be as substantial as they would be in a more robust research process. Instead, the results of this study should be viewed as stepping stones for future research. Second, I was only able to interview 3 individuals. I had originally planned to interview at least 5, but as we all know, most things in life don't quite go as planned. My interview process took place towards the end of the semester when my participants, who are all graduate students, were in the full swing of projects, papers, and presentations. Oh my! This meant that many people were too busy to participate in something outside of their own studies. But I'm really grateful that my 3 participants took the time to answer my questions because I do think they provided really valuable responses. This brings me to the third limitation of this study. Having interviews as the primary method of research has its limitations because it relies entirely on self-reporting, in which personal bias is almost always unavoidable. Regardless, however, I do feel that I was able to collect useful and meaningful data from the interviews I conducted. The last limitation I'd like to acknowledge is that during the preliminary stages of this project, I experienced a lack of prior literature on the subject. I was able to find some research and literature that was adjacent to my research topic, but nothing that closely resembled my study or my research question. My study as a whole may have been more robust if there was more information out there on the subject, but hey, that's why we conduct research in the first place, to discover undiscovered things and to fill gaps in knowledge. Although I'm not ready to talk about results because my study is not quite finished yet, I can talk about what I've learned during this process so far. I've learned that pacing yourself in any research project, even in a small study like this, is crucial. Because my primary research method was interviews, my progress in the project partially relied on other people's schedules, making staying on a tight schedule even more important. I've also learned that keeping up with the IRB process is an integral part of any research project. Before you can even start finding research participants, You have to submit an IRB and be approved. If your study requires an IRB, that is. Before taking this class, I had never even heard of an IRB before, but I now understand how necessary they are for ethical research. Through this process, I've learned that I can be just as active a participant in my own research as my interviewees. I think that became especially apparent to me because the topic I'm studying does pertain to me. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, I have learned that the interviewer is not the only one learning new things during an interview. It's a collaborative process, and you're making knowledge together. At some point in each of my interviews, the participant commented about how they themselves had discovered something new in answering my questions. I think this is the most meaningful part of research to me, realizing that this process is valuable to others besides yourself, and that it's purposed for something much bigger than you. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention during my presentation, and I hope you have a great day.